notes from that long ago to things that I was reading on Indian rolls now and the censuses. Indian census rolls. So what my notes back then finally came to, Quartz Grip is listed there, and like Quanah, and like a lot of them had, he had multiple wives. He had 5 wives. And what was listed in the register was like these things I showed you on the Wilson, where you have the ancestor and then their children. Well, this is listed like Quartz Grip, and then a wife, and then some children, and then a wife, and some children, and then a wife, for 5 of them. Then as I was searching the agency roles that you now can go on the computer and look at and things like that, it has the same kind of listing. And then it has those same names that I took down like in my notes from these handwritten big old ledgers, And then I came across one that had Nellie Cox, because when they take a census, they write down the head of the house, and then anyone else who lives in that household, and their relationship to the head of the house. Well, it has that for Quartz Grip, but when I got to one name, anyway, there was, but years later from the ledger that I had taken those notes a long time ago, and there was Nellie Cox, and she was 8 years old, and she was living with Tabby Tusovit, which turns out to be, from my notes, a son of Quartz Grip and one of his wives, and his wife, Akko. Those names reappear and reappear. And so my speculation is, because I've really searched it out, and my notes make sense now, you can put a question mark and research it yourself, that the unknown Mrs. Quartz Grip was Kokena. Because, as we'll go through, Nellie Cox, her mother died within probably right after, it could have been from childbirth. And so her father, Emmett, had a small child. And if you were out on the frontier, and running cattle and stuff like that, who would you leave your child with? An aunt and uncle, maybe? So I've tied it up that way. So you can put a question mark by that if you want, but I'm pretty convinced that Kokona was the wife of Quartz Grip, one of the 5 that we are related to. Okay?
And so Nellie Cox has no bloodline to Quanah.
To Quanah. I put Quanah in here because, yeah. It was a step.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? Wakia.
Wakia.
One of the wives.
Is that one of the wives? Or?
It was one of Quanah's wives.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they would marry women that already had children?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If a warrior died, you were supposed to take over his family. The brother took over the family, so then you'd have siblings who were also
Uncles and aunts.
cousins.
Yeah, I read that's why it's so hard to decipher who was whose, because they do that. They raise their nieces and nephews.
Yes, the way Quanah comes in here, because so Quartz Grip is your blood relative, and his wife, and they had a child named they had a daughter named Nakayape. She married Emmett Cox. That was his first wife. And she died that's the one I said died very early. It could have been in childbirth.
That was Nellie's mother?
Nellie's mother. They had a child, Nellie Cox. Emmett was left with a small child. He remarried to one of Quanah Parker's daughters,
Okay.
Namakua. And even she brought a daughter with her. Nanny Nina.
Would be Nellie Cox's stepmother.
Namakua would be Nellie Cox's godmother, or
Stepmother.
stepmother.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was Emmett's brother.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay.
Was there? Father-in-law, I'm sorry.
Father-in-law.
So was there any information why this white guy married an Indian woman? Like, was, you know?
Of course there is.
He owned a store. Good business.
Trade relations?
Yeah.
But we're not done. We'll get to that. I have a whole
all right.
section on the talks.
All right.
But we're not done with Quartzquip then yet. If you're disappointed that you're not actually blood kin to Quanah, you should not be. Let's find out about Quartzquip.
Yeah, he was just as famous.
If you find a book on Quanah Parker or the Comanche Indians, go straight to the index and look up Quartzquip. He's in every one.
Is he in the Empire of the Summer Moon? Just talked about it? I purchased that book as well, but I haven't read it yet.
What I've included in the next few pages is different things that I've been able to find in different things in different books that are written up with Quartzquip in there. In this Texas Indian Papers, it says, well, this is at one of the councils, you know, speaking to the government people and when I'm trying to work out treaties and things like that. And you know, you can read the whole book if you want to, but this is just a particular quote from Quartzquip. And so the others up there are other chiefs talking stuff like this, but this is anyway. Quartzquip, I want to say a few words. I want to say a few words to my Texas friend. I have only got one heart and have not got much to say. I have got all my talk and all my advice necessary for me. In other words, I've heard it all. I'm done talking. When I was in Washington last fall, I heard a good talk, and hear the Texas chief talk today, and am willing to try and carry it out. Was told at Washington that we were all his children and must grow up as white men and live on the white man's road. I was told to live as my agent wanted me to, and I would not be disturbed. I've been trying to get all my young men to do right. Agents would have houses and farms fixed to enable them to live all right. That was last fall, but still, he has not heard any more of those homes and those houses and things. I am just as poor now as I was then. Washington has lots of money, for I saw it in Washington. They took him to the mint.
That was a big mistake.
They took him to the mint. But I never see any of it here. I do not know what becomes of it. It must go into the ground. It has been repeatedly promised that Satanta and Big Tree would be given up to them. Satanta and Big Tree were other chiefs. They were actually Kiowa chiefs, but Kiowa and Comanche were closely associated with each other. They were peaceful to each other, and they shared a lot of the same lands and all. And by this time, they had rounded up a lot of the chiefs and just put them in jail. They kept them in jail to separate them from the people. And this had been a big, angry spot with a lot of the tribes. But they were just holding them in jail, and they wanted them out of jail. They wanted them back. Anyway, so he says, it had been repeatedly promised that Satanta and Big Tree would be given up to them. Why then are they still held in prison, and why is it delayed to release them? The governor is too particular to want all young men delivered up who have raided. They cannot be changed in a day, and I don't see why Satanta and Big Tree should still be held when today was looked for and today they were to be released. You blame us for not getting on your road, but you have broken your promises to us about houses and farms, etc. And you cannot blame us for breaking some of our promises. Why should I talk so much? I will try to get into the white man's road, but it cannot be done in a moment. We must have time. Give us Satanta and Big Tree, and we will feel glad and try to do right. I don't know why I cannot come into the post and see my friends. In Washington, I saw pretty things, fine, large looking glasses in better houses than here, and was allowed to go in. But here I cannot enter, even into the jail, to see the chiefs. Now, if you want me to be in the white man's road, let me see the things promised. Anyway, so then the Commissioner Smith, did you have ground plowed for you this spring? The court script says, I went out to the farm and thunder and lightning came and I thought it was bad medicine and I left the ground.
Yeah, they were farmers.
You know,
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Has this been interpreted from the?
Yeah.
their
Oh,
language?
yes. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
So he never spoke
Oh, I
English.
doubt that he did. I doubt that he did. None of them did when they came to the, you know, even Quanah was very, he worked a lot and got a lot of help doing it. As a matter of fact, Emmett Cox was one of his translators, so that, you know, yeah. Okay?
And he was half white.
Yeah.
He didn't speak.
And then, so then on the next page, it's just from a different book. It's called United States Comanche Relations. And again, it's at a conference at Fort Sill with the governor of Texas, Governor of Oklahoma, Davis. And you can read through it and see what it's about and all. But oh yeah. Commerheads prevailed and a compromise was reached. Cheevers, the Emperor, agreed to recruit Comanches to act as guides for a detachment from Fort Sill that would scour the plains for the raiders. You know. And so anyway, they were trying to get the young men and keep them from raiding. But that was the life that they knew, you know. And the land had always been theirs. But anyway, and they told them they'd go live here and farm. They'd give them rations of beef and give them implements to plow with and help them build houses and stuff like that. But they didn't come through with any of it, you know. So they're still in. Anyway, Captain Philip Lee rode from Fort Sill on October 12th at the head of 50 cavalrymen and 20 Indian scouts from the bands of Cheevers, Quartzgrip, and Ishahabi. His orders were to run down the Comanche raiders, reportedly in the vicinity of Double Mountain in Texas. General Sherman, with his usual bluntness, accurately criticized the mission. I think the commission, and this is a quote from General Sherman, you know, the Civil War was over and, you know, he was running another war. I think the Commissioner of Indian Affairs has imposed on the military a costly and impossible task to chase a small band of raiding Comanches in all western Texas, a county 3 or 4 times as large as the state of Pennsylvania, utterly devoid of supplies and even grass, will wear down the horses and the men and result as hundreds of similar attempts in failure. Anyway, and then it goes on about, you know, kind of life in Fort Sill and something like that, because that's where that's, you know, in Lawton, close to the Anadarko Agency. Okay. Anyway. Then these are a couple more things that are written about Quartzgrip. This was in the Smithsonian. Quartzgrip, or Chewing Elk, was a Yaparica Comanche chief. He was born in 1827 and died in 1880. The picture that you saw in there was made by Alexander Gardner in Washington in 1872 when Alfred's delegation visited the city. He is remembered for some penetrating comments which he made when he saw white men making money by the bale at the government printing plant. Quote, I saw big piles of money in Washington, he said. They could have given me some if they wanted to. We have friends at the post in Fort Sill and are not allowed to see them. You must have a big bug or a snake in there. Anyway, and then according to Sarah Prohosika, Quartzgrip's name should be written as one word, and his full name was Parderya Quartzquipperdad, which meant chewing elk. So.
Chewing elk's a lot easier to say.
Anyway, so that's in the Smithsonian. That's information you find at the Smithsonian.
Chew bark.
Yeah.
What's wrong?
I said chew, I said that.
So you shouldn't be
Say
calling
chew
it
bark.
Kurt's Quip.
I just read that.
And then there was another book that I found something in, and this gentleman wrote about Indians for a long time, but he was writing a book about the Navajo. And it was, the title of the book, there it says, is Among the Navajo. But his introducing paragraph was, 30 years ago, I was present at the council at Fort Sill, which terminated in the surrender of Satanta and Big Tree, Kiowas, to their tribe. There were speeches by Lone Wolf, Kicking Bird, Buffalo Good, Kurtzquip, and other chiefs of the Kiowas and the Comanches who were present in force. The negotiations were as between equals. The United States finally abandoned its position, surrendering the captives, and thereafter all went as merry as a marriage bell. But that was his introduction paragraph to a book he was writing called Among the Navajo. Okay? Then there's a couple of pictures of the tents, that they looked at, that they lived in on the reservations. Teepees. Teepees. Okay? Anyway, and then there's
This is on the reservation, they still lived in teepees?
yeah.
Because the government never came through with the houses.
Never did. And they weren't gonna plow those stupid fields.
It's bad medicine. We do? I think it worked the same way.
Well, they really was a step down when they had to hunt the white man's buffalo, they called it. That was the cattle that they'd steal from the
Yeah.
Right.
white ranchers.
Mhm.
'Cause
Anyway, and then there's another
that's-
little blurb on that from it's actually from a book on the 11th U.S. Infantry. Notes from the commander or whatever. Anyway, it says on July 26, 1874, the Commissioner of Indian Affairs, Edward P. Smith, instructed Colonel Davidson to enroll the non-hostile Indians at the Kiowa Comanche Agency by August 3, 1874. Davidson assigned Captain G.K. Sanderson to perform his duty, in effect removing Indian agent James H. Hathworth almost entirely from the enrollment. Captain Sanderson went to the first Comanche village 10 miles north of Fort Sill, Indian Territory, where he enrolled the bands of Horseback, Kurtzquip, and Cheevers. The next day he went to the Kiowa camp, but Kicking Bird could not get enough of his men for enrollment. They were all out raiding. Captain Sanderson told Kicking Bird to bring his men to the agency the following day for enrollment. The Kiowas came on August 3rd, but Mayatin, or Woman's Heart, caused enough trouble that Captain Sanderson wanted to arrest him, but Agent Haworth was against it. By August 8th, the Yampakura were enrolled under the supervision of Captain Sanderson. So they were all in the reservation. Okay? So investigate, read more about it, whatever, if you're interested in Kurtzquip. Anyway. Oh, okay. So then the next bit, see the red notes there? That was, it says, these notes were taken from the ledgers at the Anadarko Indian Agency in Lawton, Oklahoma in 1885. Angie and I had only the names Nakaipe and Kurtzquip, so we wrote down all references to them. These are the names of Kurtzquip's wives and children that were listed. And so then, that's what it is. And then if you go about halfway down the page, it says Kurtzquip Kokena. Okay? And then had a son named Tabitusafet and married Akko. Well, then about 10 years later or so, in an agency role, census, Indian census, Nellie was living with Tabitusafet and Akko. So that's why my presumption that Kokona was the one of Kurtzquip's wives that we descend from. And I didn't include the, that's the Indian census roll that shows that on the back side. Yes, sir. questions on that? Anything we can clear up? Are you following along?
You know, the whole story about, Cynthia being kidnapped and raising, that's a bit of a disappointment that that's not our family story anymore. It's a pretty exciting story.
Think of it this way. No.
We're more Indian than any of Juana's descendants.
Okay, that's a good point.
I guess Quanah was half, because his mother was white.
See, I had a conversation with Grandma here when she lived in the second house.
Really?
And she was telling me all this stuff, and she's telling me, you're really not Indian.
And I don't think Cynthia Ann Parker was Quanah Parker's mother either. Wasn't that a child that she just took under her wing that was given birth by another white woman?
Oh, no.
In The Empire of the Sun, that book that she was making reference to, there was a part where she
Well, I
said
read that book.
Yeah. That part where she said that something about she raised him, but it was a baby that she had gotten from another, white kidnapped woman in kind of her same situation that had died.
Did you read that, John? No, me neither.
Okay,
Well, I don't remember too much.
because I still got it on my iPad.
That's, whoa, I don't know about that, Kathy. That story
'Cause she had
is so
Peanut.
Wikipedia
documented.
version.
Yeah, she had Peanut, and she also had the
Topshana.
the Wildflower or whatever her daughter's name was. So those two were her biological children, but Quanah may not have been her biological child.
Well, see, you don't have to worry about that.
Because it doesn't matter anymore.